This is Eloi, a great friend of mine who's turning 21 next month. So I had an idea. What if I fly all the way across the world and surprise him in Spain for his 21st? But then I had a second idea. What if I also surprise him by being able to speak his language? What if in the next 30 days I learn Spanish so that when I surprise him in his hometown, I can actually have a conversation with him and his family in a brand new language? I just bought my ticket to Barcelona, so I'm surprising him either way. This feels like one of the craziest things I've done. Now, the question is whether or not I can actually learn Spanish within the next 29 days.
My wild side. It's just a state of mind. It's just my wild side.
I can't even begin to describe how much I love the idea of learning someone else's language. Eloi's actual language is Catalan since he's from the Pyrenees, but he's obviously fluent in Spanish, and it's the language I've always wanted to learn after Italian. It literally will open up an entirely new continent. When I remember first learning Italian when I moved to Torino, it just makes me smile because that's all I remember doing. Just smiling and laughing and shouting with the other Italians, you know, learning how they looked at me, how they asked me questions, studying the way that the language worked. Learning a language is a beautiful process, and when I got a text message asking me to surprise my friend in Spain for his 21st birthday, I knew that I wanted to have that feeling of connecting and falling in love with a language all over again. Welcome to day one. Most people in America take 4 years of Spanish and still can't have a conversation. If I'm going to learn this language in the next 29 days, I need to know what works and what doesn't. Luckily, I tried every single method of language learning when I was learning Italian. There was a single method that works so well, it's the only one I'll be doing for the next 29 days. I call it the tower method. So the foundation of this method is that I will only learn what I use the most in conversation. But here's the thing, not what the internet says that we use the most, but what I discovered that I use the most in conversation. I recorded myself throughout Italy and discovered that these 100 words are what I use the most. These words are individual to me. For example, online in the top 1,000 most common words, 67 to 70 are port, air, and picture. I memorized these words in Italian because they're on the list, but in the 3 months that I was in Italy, I never used them a single time. On the other hand, in my list of 100 words, 67 to 70 are until, after, and both. Words that I use all of the time. So the first part of this new method is to not memorize what people say are the most common words. Find out what words that you use the most and start with that. Now, the second part of this is where the analogy gets really good. See, I'm only building 3 towers: verbs, adjectives, and articles. No nouns yet. None. I realized that the vast majority of conversations I had in Italy never had a noun. And you might be thinking like, well, how is that possible? Because of pronouns and that we don't use complete sentences. Like, listen to this conversation. Hey, what's up? How are you doing? Where do you think we should go? I'm positive that I want to see something new because I leave pretty soon. This conversation had 0 nouns. It had tons of pronouns like it, we, you, something, but not a single noun the entire time. If you pay attention to how we actually speak, you'll realize that memorizing a ton of nouns immediately is pointless. So the third part of this is where we connect the towers. To work with this analogy, you know, if you build super tall towers, they'll topple over. But if you build something to connect those towers together, then you can build them much higher. I know it's a very, very thought out analogy. After memorizing the most common verbs, adjectives, and articles, I will then study phrases that I also use in conversation to connect these towers. Learning words in context is the most important part of learning a language. By the end of this month, I will have 3 huge towers with bridges connecting them that will hopefully allow me to learn as much of this language as possible before I arrive in Spain. So, to summarize, 1. I will only memorize what I use the most. 2. I will only memorize verbs, articles, and adjectives. And 3. I'll spend most of this month only learning phrases to connect each tower. Let's see how this works. All right, so welcome to day 2. I'll show you what this method actually looks like. I have this list of words. The first thing I do is write down whatever word I'm on in English, which in here is each, the word each. So I'd write that down in English and translate it on the phone, which is cara, it looks like. But I keep that translation in my head, I don't write it down yet. Then after I've written down all the English words, I flip the page over and start writing the Spanish words. So for each, that's cara. Yesterday I reached word 40. Right now I'm on word 64. Today's only the second day starting to learn this new language, but I'm already realizing how far just 64 words can go. Okay, hoy es días 3. I have finally finished memorizing the most common 100 words that I use in conversation, and oh my god, I'm literally going to be using these 100 words for every single language that I learn for the rest of my life. They are so useful. I wish I did this for Italian so much. Towers are officially built, but they're looking a bit wobbly. Ahora necesito aprender frases. Sounds so Italian. Hola, hoy es días nueva. Quiero mostrarte cómo estoy aprendiendo frases. So it starts from what phrases I'm actually going to learn. These are like phrases that I thought would be important and common from when I was traveling around Italy. Partial sentences like I need to learn, or questions like where is somewhere you want to go? Something like that with typical words that I'd use a lot. I usually memorize 15 to 30 of these sentences a day, which only takes around 20 minutes. If you take a look though at what I actually have memorized, it is an unbelievable amount. I feel like give me like one more week and I'm already gonna be like pretty conversational. Hola, buenos días, ¿qué tal? Hoy es mi segunda semana estudiando español. Cada palabra que uso ahora es una de mis 100 palabras más comunes o de mis frases más comunes. It's going pretty well. I sound very Italian, I speak very Italian, that's not going away. I don't know what the Spanish accent even really sounds like, so I can't really replicate it yet. Aside from this new list I'm using, the most different part about learning Spanish now versus how I learned Italian is how much effort I'm putting into this. Italian was a grind. For 10 days, I was working nonstop. For Spanish, for the entirety of the last 2 weeks, if I did study Spanish, the longest I ever did was 20 minutes. Every day I put in 20 minutes. It's like not even as much time as people spend on Duolingo. I originally thought this would be an episode about pushing myself to my absolute limit, of studying day and night, of working on this non-stop. What I didn't realize though at the start of this month was that I would be pushing myself in other aspects of my life. This month has been a ridiculous one, and by far like one of the busiest I've ever had. Road trips and traveling and concerts, hanging out with new, seriously amazing people, learning a new VFX software, getting up at 4:30 every day to go to a Buddhist temple, meditating for hours, one day meditating for 10 hours. I have learned so much this month. It just turns out that Spanish couldn't take the front seat. Pero he aprendido algo fascinante. Puedo hablar mucho de español. He solo estado estudiando durante 2 semanas, pero puedo tener una conversación en un nuevo idioma. ¡Qué ridículo! Estoy non practicado. Estoy solo usar mis más palabras, más comunes palabras, and que aprendido este mes. See, yeah. I might look back on whatever I just said and cringe a little bit because I'm sure a lot of that was wrong. But this is what 2 weeks of learning Spanish for 20 minutes a day looks like. This is no longer a video about someone doing something crazy anymore. This is just a video about discovering how to learn a language efficiently, but also very easily. Imagine if instead of this overly casual approach, I decided to just study Spanish every minute of the day for the next 30 days. You know, study this for 8 hours a day. You would watch this video, think, oh wow, that's pretty interesting, and then never use anything you learned from that video because no one has 8 hours a day to study a language. But now look at what's going on. I'm only spending 20 minutes a day learning this new language, and I'm still learning a lot. This is now something that you can literally do, not just watch. This is literally more fun and easier than Duolingo. I guess overall what I'm trying to get at is that YouTube is now filled with people doing the most crazy thing possible. You know, I put a helmet on my head for a week. I learned Portuguese in 7 days. I didn't eat for 30 days. But these videos don't really teach us anything. I'm not gonna put a helmet on my head for a week. Like, que carajo? The videos that have inspired me the most are the ones that are real and genuine and possible for me to try myself. In the future, I'm not always gonna have time to study languages for 8 hours a day, but I will always have 20 minutes. I will always have 20 minutes. And until I finally surprise Eloi in Catalonia, I'm gonna see what those 20 minutes are capable of. Hola, bienvenido al día 21. Quiero mostrarte cómo es mi día. Todos los días es muy fácil ahora. Primero miro las frases que escribí ayer durante 10 minutos y después pienso las nuevas frases para aprender. Escribo en inglés y luego en español. People are always looking for like cool new ways to learn languages, and all I'm doing right now is just writing words, then writing phrases, and memorizing as much as I can. The main philosophy that I'm trying to get at is that it's immensely powerful to learn how to get good at something without spending more than 20 minutes a day on it. Like, I had a conversation yesterday with friends who took 6 years of Spanish, and I could carry a conversation that they couldn't. Just 3 weeks of 20 minutes a day did more for me than 6 years of 3 hours a week in an American school system. I can conversate in Italian and Spanish, yet 5 months ago in June, I didn't know a single word in either language. At the end of the day, what I'm trying to do is just have fun throughout this. There's a lot of things I'm learning that I'm taking very seriously, but I don't want learning languages to be one of them. I want to connect with the language. I want to have fun through the whole time so that I want to keep learning languages for the rest of my life. I simply found what works for me, and that's what's most important. When I start learning the next languages on my list, like Indonesian and Tibetan, I'm going to be doing this exact same thing. First, memorizing the most common words that I use. Second, memorizing the most common phrases. And then third, moving to that country. I've been in this airport for 24 hours. I haven't boarded the flight yet. I haven't slept in a day. I haven't slept. I don't have a wallet. I have no ID and no credit card, no way to buy anything. Can't get past security. I'm not going to Spain. At least not like this.